Good evening, Mr. Bond fans, and welcome once again. Today I'm going to talk to you about a special publication, Live and Let Die, the Peter Lamont Portfolio, courtesy of MI6 Confidential. For those of you who don't know, MI6 Confidential is a specialist James Bond magazine. They go in depth on pretty much every aspect of Bondom, from the films to the books to games, merchandise, all that kind of stuff. I've personally written a couple of articles for them in the past, and it's just a really great read for a true die-hard Bond fan. There's a lot of very interesting, in-depth articles, opinions, bits of behind-the-scenes stuff that you might not have previously known about, and it's just wonderful because it is one of the only specialist publications for Bond fans. And very recently they sent me this special publication, as I said, and this is the first time they've branched out into this kind of publication. To call it a magazine is to kind of do it a disservice. As you can see, it's a very sturdy, lovely piece of production. It's just under 100 pages long, and it is Peter Lamont's recountings of working on Live and Let Die. Now, chances are you're already very familiar with Peter Lamont if you're a big Bond fan, because you've probably seen him in behind-the-scenes documentaries and whatnot, because he is a very prominent figure in the production of the James Bond films. Chances are you've also probably read his book, The Man with the Golden Eye, which came out last year. I myself got it for Christmas, and it's a bloody great read. Peter Lamont has a really interesting history with the franchise. He started on Goldfinger and kind of worked his way up through the art department to become the production designer, and had a hand in every Bond film from Goldfinger to Casino Royale, excluding Tomorrow Never Dies, while he was busy working on Titanic, and for which he won an Oscar. So, fair play. If you're gonna miss one for, you know, that, it's kind of alright. Anyway, as I say, I got The Man with the Golden Eye last year, and it's a really great read. There are chapters on every Bond film that he worked on. There's some really interesting behind-the-scenes stuff. Some of his own personal photos and artifacts are collected in here, which is really interesting. There's basically a chapter on each of the Bond films that he worked on, and a few pages, and stories, anecdotes, interesting tidbits, that sort of thing. It's a really good read, and I really like Peter Lamont's writing style because it comes through so genuine. There's not an air of pretentiousness or you know, snobbery about it. It's just he's very practical, very down-to-earth, it seems. I've never met the man. But it just makes a really great, honest read. You do get the feeling that you are just hearing the absolute truth from him, and there's no sugarcoating. Now, The Man with the Golden Eye is a really great book. But if you're anything like me, you can't help but come away from such a thing feeling like there's just so much more to it, which is where the Peter Lamont Portfolio comes in, the MI6 Confidential publication, because this is all, and he acknowledges it in the first few pages of the publication, that he isn't just repeating what he already put in his book, because that was literally only released last year, but rather what is in here is all the stuff that couldn't fit in that book. Because, I mean, to be honest, you could probably just have an entire book of Peter Lamont stories for, like, every Bond film he worked on. Or at least that's what it seems reading this Live and Let Die issue, because there is just so much in here, and there's more photos that aren't in that book, more stories, tidbits. I'm not going to spoil any of the stories that are in here, because I want you to be able to enjoy it as much as I did when I read it, but suffice it to say that there are some highlights. Obviously, Lamont's writing about the speedboat chase at the end through the bayous is super interesting, as is probably the aspect of production that he was most involved in. There's some really, like, just curious photos, like, of what the guys would do, like, on their days off as well. There's all these photos of Peter Lamont, like, in and outside of a Burger King. There's an interesting reveal of exactly whose idea it was to put the number 007 on the back of Solitaire's cards, which doesn't really make sense to this day. And there's a super interesting story. This isn't specifically about Live and Let Die, but there's a super interesting little anecdote about Maurice Binder and how some of the people involved in the production of the films tried to get him removed from the series later on. The issue also serves as something of a tribute to Roger Moore, and Peter Lamont acknowledges in his opening page that Roger Moore was still alive when work on this publication began, and news came through of his passing while they were working on it. So it's kind of strange in a way to think that this was being done even before then, because it serves as kind of a wonderful tribute to the man. It's really quite touching. A lot of Peter Lamont's stories about how Moore was on set are really lovely and warm and kind, and it serves as a great tribute to a late great actor. I was very lucky in that I got an advanced copy of this, and I took it with me on my most recent holiday, and it made for fantastic reading material all the way through the trip. It's a really great publication, and it's on sale now, so I would highly recommend getting it. I'm really hoping that they do more of these kind of things in the future. I'm sure that Peter Lamont can probably do, you know, an entire 100-page issue on pretty much every Bond film he worked on. But I'd be also curious to see what this kind of format would look like if it was from a different perspective of production, like music or sound or camera work, something like that. I'd find really interesting. It's a really great publication and highly recommended. In the meantime, I'm going to leave a link to the MI6 Confidential website below, so please do head over if this is something that you'd be interested in and place an order. I highly doubt you'd regret it. That's it for this time, Bond fans, so long for now.